Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
This is Jason at Volco Auto Supply in Lawrenceburg. For over 90 years, Volco has been a family-owned company. We're proud of our past and excited about our future. We're open to the public for wholesale and retail trade. We carry product lines such as Milwaukee Tools, Lucas Oil, and Malco products. We carry all major brands of lubricants like Shell Rotella, Haviland, Castrol GTX, Mystic, Motorcraft, Valvoline, Kindle, and Mobil. We here at Volco offer a complete line of car detailing supplies, shop supplies, tire repair products, and lawnmower supplies. Check us out online at VolcoAutosupply.com or at 416 Buffalo Road here in Lawrenceburg.
Tennessee Flight Training. We are training the next generation of pilots. Come and see why Tennessee Flight Training is the best way to learn to fly. Tennessee Flight Training. The skies are calling.
Story and Lee, the Tennessee Valley's most dynamic furniture store, featuring our Made in America galleries with solid wood dining and bedrooms, leather furniture, mattresses, and so much more. You want it? We've got it. With our 3 acres of showroom and our huge warehouse, we're sure to have exactly what you want. And it's all ready to be delivered to your home absolutely free. Just try that anywhere else. We are Story and Lee.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
And welcome here to the Back Nine, brought to you by Wohali Sports. Here, joined by our 2 pros, and Daniel Creo, Jason Vaughn. And guys, good to have you back. We have a fall feeling morning/afternoon. This definitely feels pretty good, especially compared to what we had a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, this is awesome. We we never know what kind of weather we have around here. Being out here all the time, teaching in these bays, we don't really get the comfort of the wind, so when it's hot, it's extremely hot. The good thing is, I guess in the winter, the wind, it's a north wind always in the winter, so we do get all the wind in the north, so we don't get as much comfort. This is nice. We enjoy it.
Yes.
I think everybody should be getting golf lessons right now.
Yeah, it's
For sure.
Don't you agree?
I 100% agree.
Golf season's kind of tampered down a bit. It's a good time to be in the bays, right?
It is, and I know out at Turtle Point, that's where I play if I get a chance to play. They even move their club championship, and more country clubs are moving their championships to this time of year just because of the comfort. The greens are in better condition. Right. The course is not as beat up. Right. So perfect time of year. This is great.
Yeah, this is my favorite type of weather. I like spring because it's coming out of winter, but fall golf to me is some of the best golf. Like Daniel said, the golf courses are in great condition. The trees are changing. You can already see some of the trees back there starting to change because the nights are getting cooler. And so, but it's a perfect time to come out, practice, get a lesson, spend some time out here at the driving range.
Yep.
All right, well, moving ahead, guys, we've been talking about setting up the swing, getting it good. We've talked about grip, talked about some other things. Now you guys are going to talk about takeaway. Every part of the golf swing is important, but this is certainly one of the most important.
Yeah, and today we're just going to talk a little bit about the takeaway. The takeaway is very, very important. It can be broken up into many, many different segments. I can tell you this, I can spend 3 one-hour lessons with a student on progression to the takeaway, and if they don't perfect it to where it's acceptable and where we're improving, then we're going to spend more time on it. I always tell my students the takeaway can set a golfer up for failure or success. Just because you're in a good position up top, you still have a lot going on the downswing, but again, if you start at a bad position,
Right.
basically you want to play offense on the downswing. You want to move freely, but if you're in a bad position, then your body's going to try to recover on the way down, so you're playing defense.
Right.
And we don't want to be playing defense on the downswing. So takeaway is super important. Most people, when they come in here, all they talk about, I know I'll come over the top, I know that everything's on the downswing, and they're focusing on the fastest motions in the golf swing, and they forget about the easy ones that are easy, like what we talked about last week, setup, the free throw of golf.
Right.
And then now on the takeaway, you got to think we actually have time to manipulate the signals coming from our brain to the muscles so we can actually influence. But once that transition starts, it's pretty much game over. What's going to happen is already set to happen. So takeaway is important.
It's very important. I mean, I've been teaching for almost 20 years, and if I don't see, as you say, if I don't see what I want to see on the takeaway, we can spend the whole lesson on that easily. You said 2 or 3 lessons. It can definitely be that, because there's so many parts of the takeaway, the load, the way your wrist set, different things that go on that could be wrong, that can be right. And when a student comes in, I agree with you, they're always worried about the impact. The impact is very, very important. But if you don't set it up correct on the way back, or just in that 3 foot that we're talking about from the ground to 9 o'clock or waist high, if we don't get that correct, I've always felt like that the entire swing is, you may save it, but you're not going to do it consistently.
That's right. The more you rely on timing in golf, the more that can go wrong.
Yeah.
So our job is to eliminate the areas in the golf swing that you rely the most on timing, and that's how I kind of structure the lessons is basically a checklist. You have 4 timing issues. This one is going to have the biggest effect on you immediately, and that's what we're going to work on. And literally, it's just check marks. Hey, we got to progress, and I got to see progression from lesson to lesson. But again, I'll go ahead and tell you the backswing is super important. The downswing is the hardest thing to fix because it happens so fast. Your conscious mind has very little effect on changing things. So if you can actually clean up the follow through and the backswing, everything somehow in between kind of fixes itself. You got to think, if you fix the start and the beginning, that means everything in the center had to be acceptable, right? So we're just going to start the takeaway today. So
yes, sir.
Let's go ahead and what we're going to start with is rotation.
Right.
So rotation, as simple as it sounds, I would probably say a high percentage in the 70s, 80% of my golfers that come in here have little or too much rotation, or they get the rotation incorrectly. The point of application of the forces in the ground, how much movement the lower body and upper body has, and the thing is, it's just simple rotation. And we're going to demonstrate and show 2 examples of rotation really quick. Go ahead and start with your student, Jason.
Okay. Start him off from the beginning. We'll go through, watch his lower body.
You want us to draw a line on there so they can
Yes.
see what they're looking at?
Put a line on his backside, and then let's go back to start, and let's put one, like you talked about a fist off on the front.
So what we're looking at here for everybody watching is there's an imaginary line, call it a wall, just below the waist, below the belt. And what we see is when you rotate, your lead hip, so for your right-handed golfers, lead hip has to move this way, and the back hip, the trail hip, moves this way. So they're counteracting each other, which means you should actually stay in place. But if one is doing more work than the other, then we get too much forward movement. We call it thrust.
And as you'll see in his video here, as he starts to rotate, he is getting on that back line that we drew, that's drawn on your rear end. The big thing that you're going to see here in just a second in his takeaway is his left knee, and he has rotated his hips, and the hip rotation looks correct like we talked about early, but his knee is starting to go out past that line, out over his toes, which is going to make him ultimately move a little closer to the ball. And
you can
really
see here he's already pulling off that trail line, so he started out really good. As you see his right leg, see how it's much straighter than the lead leg? So his rotation, the basics of it are there. He's just doing a little bit too much with the lead leg.
So you don't want to see that much space in between the legs when you're looking at it from that angle.
That's correct. Yes. So you see that gap of daylight. We need to see daylight there,
But not that
much. And the easy things, because you can say, well, how much daylight is enough or not enough? Well, what we want to see is we want to see a trail hip stay on that back line or behind it. Honestly, if you rotate it correctly, the right butt cheek goes past the line.
It does.
And then the other thing to look at is that front knee doesn't go past your toes. That's the two big ones.
Two
and if
big
you do that right, you're going to see just the right amount of daylight.
That's correct. And I think that this portion, like we talked about, of the golf swing, if it is done correct, like you said, we were talking earlier, it is going to set you up for a correct impact where you don't have too much early extension, you don't have too much off balance, you don't get stuck at impact, you're not moving your body towards the ball, and a bunch of other things that can happen. If we can get the rotation correct, it's going to set us up for a positive downswing.
Yeah, and a lot of people, you don't realize how these little small things have a huge influence on what's about to happen on the downswing. So if you really break down cause and effect, so with his front knee moving out too far, that means he's getting too much weight out into his toes, okay? But his back leg is actually straightening, so now he has more weight into probably the ball of his foot on his right side or more into the heel, and he has an extreme angle from the point of application of pressure, extreme toe on the lead foot, extreme heel here.
Correct.
You'll also notice that his midsection, so his center of mass, is actually moved closer to the ball. And he has super opposites. He has a lot of weight in his heel, a lot of weight in his toes, and he's going to have to correct that balance, and he's also going to have to correct that distance from the ball, either by moving back away from the ball or standing up. So a lot of compensations that are unnecessary.
Right, yeah.
And what I always tell my golfers is you have 100% of energy. The more movements you have to borrow from 100%.
Right.
So the 100% could be divided amongst 10 different movements, but you only need 3 that are necessary. Right. So you're stealing away efficiency and power.
Correct. And the big thing that we worked on with this student was getting his knee to stay back, getting his rear end to actually, like Daniel said, push through that wall, and it ended up cleaning up his impact. He was able to actually get to a better impact because we cleaned up his takeaway. And so that just, for instance, shows you or tells you that if we can work on the beginning 3 foot of your swing, it's going to affect the downswing. It's going to affect the impact. And so he was hitting it on the heel a little bit, and so we started to clean up and get him to hitting it more in the center. He started gaining his distance back that he came in that he had lost because of his contact.
I'm going to steal your HDMI
Yes,
cable.
sir.
Tell me when you got that up. Tell me when it feeds over there. Good? All right, cool. So we got a different example here. This is one of my students. He's a Tennessee native. Yeah. So what he does is he under-rotates here. So you can see I have similar lines that Jason drew. These are very telling lines, and we talked about posture last week, and this is one thing, if you watched that video, if you didn't, go back and watch. You can see his knees are bent already a little bit too much here. I would like to get some of that knee bend out, but let's look at him as he takes it back. By the naked eye or an untrained eye, his club is in a good position, hands are in a decent position, hands go out a little bit. But the thing is everything looks pretty good here, but what me and Jason see is an all arms takeaway.
Right.
That's right.
So if no hips are moving, the hips should be moving with the hands at an equal pace. Everything should be similar. I call it fluid, and Jason, you can maybe elaborate on what you think on this, but if your hands are moving, your waist better start moving. Not one starts ahead of the other, and they should move at the same pace until they're maxed out, roughly. Does that make sense?
That is 100% correct. And I like to call it, come up with a term, is you want to glide the club back and let your lower body, the butt of the club needs to follow and the belt buckle follow each other. And if they don't go together, and you've really got like this gentleman here, like his arms, his belt buckle has barely even moved and he's already at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, we'll see this. So what this is going to happen, and I'm going to kind of tell you the cause and effect, that defensive downswing and what he had to do to hit the ball. And that's what we're wrestling with a little bit, and he's made massive improvements, but let's go ahead and keep going back a little bit. Look at his arms, still going good. Upper body rotation, thoracic rotation's great. Shoulder rotation's plenty. It looks like he's rotated a lot, but if you look at his belly button and belt buckle, I'm going to change colors here. We're going to go yellow. They're pointing just probably, I would say, 18 inches behind the ball when I should clearly start seeing that lead belt loop. So when I talk about belt loop, is this belt loop right here? You can see that one. I should see the equal belt loop on the other side at this point. And the thing is what that's going to do is now he doesn't have enough hip rotation on the backswing for his kinetic sequence to start correctly.
Correct.
So if he has more arm rotation, he has to unrotate those arms, and he's going to be handsy from the very beginning.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Typically, when people get handsy, what happens? Do they swing inside or over the top?
Straight over the top.
That's correct. So let's
Very
look.
steep.
So, and you can see he signals. Look at his hands moving towards his head, and that club gets outside the hands, well outside the hands.
And that's when you're talking about overcompensating for the lack of hip. You saw the hands move and immediately go to that.
That's right.
That is
So,
correct.
will this fix over the top completely? No, it will not. But the thing is, the reason he does swing the way he does is, I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg first. Was it because he's over the top, or is it because his hips weren't rotating properly in the backswing? I'm going to be a guesser that the hips are not rotating, and that's the reason why he gets handsy from the top, and he has that cast and scoop. So again, he's been focusing on the over-the-top move, and we've been working on it, but if we just cleaned up the takeaway a little bit, we might eliminate a few degrees of over-the-top there.
Yep. And
Sure.
also saw no daylight in between.
Zero
Like,
daylight.
Yeah, let's
no
look at that.
daylight.
Let's look at
We
that.
went
This is something that Dana
we
and I
went
have
from
talked
all
about.
the daylight to zero.
That's
daylight.
right. We like to see, we got some gravel out here. We want to see a little bit of gravel between your knees. If you don't have any daylight there, it's a pretty good chance that you haven't rotated very much, maybe 30 degrees at best.
And that's going to put a lot of pressure on your lower back as well.
100%.
It causes tension. So what I always tell people, tension-wise, is tension's created from basically opposing forces. If things are working opposite, you get tighter, correct?
Right.
Or if one's moving slower than the other one, we get tension. We want everything to kind of flow freely. And I can tell you, I've had an 87-year-old man in here tell me, I've worked on rotating. You just said rotate, and nobody can get me to rotate. Well, we got him to rotate because the thing is, it was his body hindering up, and the simple mechanics of just how to rotate. We're not looking for super fast hips and the hips pointed at the target. That's not what we're talking about. More, if your upper body's moving, the lower body's going to do what it can. So let's go ahead and go through a couple of drills on how we work on this. So how do you? So if somebody comes in, kind of like your student, he actually had some good basics and fundamentals of the rotation, but what did you guys work on?
We took so we were trying to get him to push his rear end into, I put a noodle up behind him on top of like a bucket. And so I put something back there so he would actually feel like he pushed his weight back into, like you talked about, pushing through the line. So
you worked on focusing on his hind side, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Sorry, gang, I should have got this out before. Here at BC Golf, we get very creative.
We do.
And we make our own stuff, and for you viewers, you can make this. I think it ended up costing me like $30. You can see I have two different sizes here, and the thing is we don't have eyes on the back of our heads, so we got to go off feel, correct? So what Jason's talking about is that golfer, if you remember correctly, when he took the club back, his rear actually moved towards the target. So instead of focusing on anything in the front, and he could actually hit balls, what he wanted to do is, if you've ever had your fingerprint taken, you roll your finger, the whole finger, correct? That's what we want to do. We want to roll our butt cheeks. So we want to roll our right one on, and as soon as the right one starts leaving, the left one rolls back on. So it's going to look something like this. So when I take my backswing, see how I noticed I'm pushing this away?
That's correct.
And what Jason did is you can actually get a bench, put a 5-gallon bucket, and your goal is to push the bucket away from you.
That's exactly.
You can actually have another bucket on the other side if you are working on rotation and punch it off. You want to punch it off the bench, right? But this is actually a really good one because we're not going to exaggerate that much. What I like my golfers to do is actually get about an inch away from it, so they actually have to chase it. They have to feel it. So what you can see there's a small gap here. And when I take the club back, I'm on it. And when I start down, my right cheek comes off and my left cheek picks back up and it stays on. And once you're through the follow-through, it's okay to extend and stand up.
That's right.
You're actually going to gain balance, and we want the golfer to stand up and straighten out.
Correct.
So that's a very good one. Something here. You can actually practice this on your walls at home. Don't use a golf club. You can't use a golf club. Just cross your arms. and put your rear up next to the wall. Once it's next to the wall, scoot up about an inch. I want about an inch away. And then I want you to rotate and touch the wall with your right cheek and then follow through with the left. And I'm big on drills, getting the clubs out of your hand.
And that's a good one. And what I use the exact same drill with my students, and I have them envision 2 rags in the back pockets. So then when they're that little inch off the wall, I want them to feel like they touch and then wipe the wall, and then I want them to touch with their left side and then wipe the wall again.
So Karate Kid stuff, man.
That's right.
I like it.
How about that?
Do you put on a bandana when
I do,
you're doing
actually.
that?
I have a bandana. Correct. Wipe it. Karate Kid. I haven't thought about that. That's a good one.
So another one is you can do something like this, and for you people at home, you can just get alignment rods and stick them in the ground. This is, I think some kiddos took my ideally length alignment rods, so we had to make something really quick. So instead of focusing something on your rear, we can actually look here. So we're going to go back to Jason's student, and you'll notice that his lead leg, his right leg actually did really well. It tried to fight to stay here, but there was so much movement forward with the lead leg, it still ultimately pulled him off that imaginary line right there, correct?
Correct.
So how did you work on that lead leg?
The big thing is we took exactly what you have set up here, but I didn't have 2 of them sitting there, and we took just a little noodle and put it across his legs here and had him do the exact drill that you're going to work on there, is trying to get him to limit how far his knee was going over his toes. So this drill is outstanding for that.
This is a good one. The way I have it set up today, you can't hit balls and hit anything because I got 2 big white weights that are in the way. So what I'm going to do is just stick the club up with my shoulders. But the thing is just feeling it and feeling the difference is great. I'm big 100%. On doing movements without a ball because, again, when you introduce the ball, the original motor skill kicks in. You start reflexing different ways. So this allows you to focus a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is get in here, and if you'll remember this knee hitting that, correct?
That's right.
So what I want my golfers to do is, and I tell them the inseams of their pants. Let's think about the inseams, the inside, and let's focus on the inseams. So instead of the inseam really moving towards that ball, again, to rotate, we actually, this lead leg has to go out and this one has to go up. That's what causes rotation. But I want that inseam to kind of chase back a little bit, and I want you to miss that noodle, and then on the way down, we want to miss it as well, and that's going to reassure that our butt stays on that line.
And that is correct. And this is a good drill for the backswing. And I know today we're not working on the follow through, but it's a good one for the follow through to keep the knees from pushing out as well. Keeps you in a clean follow through as well. Like you had said earlier, and this is true, if you can get the backswing and the follow through, it is amazing how the impact starts to get a little bit better.
Yeah, so again, that goes back to, we're just trying to eliminate the defense on the way down, and we want to offensively play. So we don't want to try to play recover on the downswing, because let's remember, the backswing can take, we'll say 1 second.
That's right.
Downswing is 0.3.
That's right.
So you have 1/3 the time to complete the downswing and recover, and you have to travel a greater distance, because on the downswing, not only do we have to return back to the impact zone, but the impact zone looks something like this. So everything had to move quite a bit further in less time. So that's a lot of recovery effort, and it almost sounds like the odds are against you.
They are against you.
Exactly.
I mean, and so you're thinking about all the things, trying to make a change in the downswing. It is really hard to do, because it is, most people are at that 0.3 of a second in their downswing. I mean, how fast? I mean, that's really fast. So, I mean, it's literally, you go back 1001, and then you got 0.3 coming down to try to make a change. So cleaning up the takeaway is a great way, because you have that second that you can actually make a change and think about making a change, even while you're hitting a ball.
And when we come back, we can talk a little bit about how to properly rotate, and then we'll. We got some questions, right?
We got some questions, some from my friends, but mainly from me, and things I've wondered throughout the years. So that's coming up next here on the Back Nine from Wohali Sports.
Great food is just a short drive to Heine's Barbecue in Lawrenceburg. Mouth-watering is just one way to describe the amazing flavors of the best piece of Heine in town. When you dig into a plate of pulled pork, hand-chopped brisket, chicken, wood-fire oven pizzas, and the menu goes on. Wash it all down with a swig of Heine Shine lemonade, and then make your way over to the gift shop full of Heine sauces, snacks, and more. Heine's Barbecue, Highway 43 North, in Lawrenceburg.
Hey, this is Phil Hooper. Get the look you want for your favorite school, church, or business with apparel from HD Ink Screen Printing in Leoma, Tennessee. Got a logo you need embroidered or screen printed? Let HD Ink give you the professional look that sets the bar in today's world. We do fundraisers and custom designed apparel and so much more. Call today, 931-201-2961, or come see us at our new shop located at 26 Ingram Road in Leoma. Remember, HD Ink for the look you want and the look you deserve.
You're gonna see me shine, 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 shine. Walking on beams of light, 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 light.
If there ever was such a thing as a company that could do almost everything, well, Teneke Properties is it. These guys know how to completely transform your existing home into something totally new, or can do it for you room by room. Need a new bathroom or kitchen? What about a fresh coat of paint or a new floor? Looking for dirt work? Teneke has you covered. Oh, and you can even rent a dumpster from them too. That's Teneke Properties. Visit Teneke.com or phone 931-244-4602.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
And back here at the Back Nine, brought to you by Wohali Sports, kind of continuing our discussion from the previous segment, talking about rotation. Then we'll get into a little bit of mailbag here, guys.
Yes, so rotation, again, we understand how important it is. So what about the golfer that I had? Yeah. He was just all arms taking it back.
All
correct?
arms.
Yeah. He
Yeah,
was
so
stuck in the mud there.
Yeah, and honestly, for somebody that was looking at it, it looked pretty darn good, right?
The position at the back, at the takeaway, the club face was matching his spine. Everything looked good. Going up to the top, his arms looked like they were in a good position.
So for people checking their rotation, again, we're going to think about belt buckle or belly button. So what me and Jason mentioned earlier is as we take it back, we want equal movements. We don't want one really greater than the other. We don't want to get here and then let the belly catch up and then go here and look like a machine going all the way back, right?
I'm sorry to laugh, but I actually have had this happen in a lesson.
I have that happen all the time.
And they're like, all right, so I was told to do this, and I'm supposed to take my upper body back and get to 9 o'clock.
Certain
and then
point, right?
There, that's right. And then when I get to about 45 degrees, I'm going to let my hips engage. And I'm like, how in the world are you going to time all that up? I mean, it's just way too hard.
Well, they're like, well, I'm getting in the right positions, you told me.
Yeah.
As long as I get there, it's okay, right?
Yeah, no.
The thing is, we need fluid movements. Again, the body does better, and efficiency is more when the body's moving fluid. So we need to train the body to get in these positions at a timely manner, and they need to be working together. So a lot of people are like, so do my hands move a little faster, my hips, does my chest? I think everything in my mind should be equal until they max out. And your hips are going to max out first, then the shoulders are going to max out, or your chest.
That's right.
Your torso is going to max out, and then the shoulders will max out, right?
Correct.
We need to have some kind of control because some people are more mobile, and their max out could be like way over here. So when I use the term max out, it still needs to be within a tolerance level. So what I mean by that, and I'm just going to kind of demonstrate, is I want my hands and hips and everything to kind of move, and we're going to look at this position, which is, Jason called it the 9 o'clock position. Some people call it 3, and I just call it club parallel. So once the club gets parallel, this is our first checkpoint, and we want to start seeing these hips turning, and we should see about that 45-degree angle about at this point. Don't you agree?
I agree.
And then and again, you got to remember, we all move a little bit less or a little bit more. So if you're stuck there, then you might need to give us a call, and we can actually prescribe you exercises to work on your mobility. And these are going to target just for golf and your overall well-being, because it is very critical that we can get enough hip rotation in the backswing. If you struggle with it, I tell people just to flare out their back foot, and what that's going to do is help them
It's going to unlock the
move.
rotator.
But don't do that. That is that's the last resort. In my
That is,
opinion.
it is, and I would go first to exercises, and then if it doesn't work from there, and you still have some kind of surgery or something that's hindering you, then you flare the foot.
So we're going to go here. We're going to take it back, and I just want your first checkpoint. We just want that belt buckle pointed about 45 degrees when the club is parallel. The golfer that I had on there, he's probably moved
10 degrees?
Yeah, 8 degrees, something like that. So very, very low. And once we get to that 45 to 50 degree mark, we're pretty good. If you can go a little bit more, I would actually prefer it. But if it stops there, hey, it's not going to kill you. But we need to get to that point. So let's go back to your golfer and my golfer. So if we're teaching somebody how to properly rotate, what I tend to do is I like to stand my golfers up because they're already struggling bent over. When we bend over, for whatever reason, the body does a lot of weird things. I always tell my students just to get a laugh out of them because I've just been critical on them for about 30 minutes. I always say it's like putting a 16-year-old boy in front of a girl. A lot of weird things start happening when you bend over on a girl. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Strange stuff. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stand you up to get you more comfortable, okay? And I'm just going to say, hey, I want you to shake my hand. So Jason's me. I'm going to shake his hand, and I'm just going to go do this. And I want you to turn everything, and you'll notice how this leg slightly straightens up and this one went forward for that rotation to happen. That is the same move when you bend over. It should just be that simple handshake. And you notice it didn't go way out here. This leg didn't collapse. This leg didn't do this. And those are moves that we see. We either see this leg hyperextending here, this one going way too forward, or we see a sway like this. That's not rotating. You're still way back there. And we don't see, both legs bent where we're going down. We want just a simple rotation, and I want you to look somebody in the eye and shake their hand, because when we shake somebody's hand, we're supposed to look them in the eye, right?
That's correct. And I think another thing that I have seen over the years is in that rotation move that a lot of students believe or have read or seen that they should keep a bunch of flex in this right leg, that it shouldn't give. We don't want it to hyperextend like you said, but we do want it to give back and actually, I don't want it to straighten up, but some people need to get close to straightening up to make that rotation. And so it doesn't have to stay super flexed or evenly flexed with your left leg. It
Typically,
can give.
If you have a good setup, and it's a good point to talk about, and again, you don't have all the numbers. All our viewers don't have the numbers at home, but this lead leg should double and flex
right
here. This one should lose about a quarter of flex here. So this one's going to straighten up, not straight, but it's going to lose a little bit of its flex, about a quarter. Right. And then this one's going to double in flex. If we were looking at it and trying to put it in numbers, that's what's really happening.
Sure.
So very good, simple. I think starting out, standing up has really done wonders for my students.
Sure.
And I tell them just a simple, hey, grab the club and just simply rotate, standing up. I mean, look how hard that is. It's not very hard, and then we got to do that same movement bent over. Do you have any other tips that you give your students?
I just think it's amazing that as the students stand up, how they can make that really good rotation, and then as soon as they get bent over at a 50 or 45 degree angle, they start becoming unable to do that.
Weird things start happening.
Weird things start happening. And so exactly like that, I'll take my students, we'll be here, we rotate, and then I'll have them start going as they're going over like this, going into that
Absolutely.
40 or 45 degree angle, and they're constantly making that rotation. It's easier to feel that, like you said, standing up and then going to a bent over position.
It's good for club path, it's good for face control, and again, I believe in the term KISS, keep it simple, stupid is great.
That is correct.
And doing that is a good way to get people in the golf position without doing all those weird things. So, good tips.
Good stuff, guys. Now, we're going into the mailbag. First question I have, and I've thought about this myself, is something I've struggled with as a terrible golfer, and I know a lot of people have asked. Ball placement in the stance. Some people, ideally you would want it center, but some people like to play a little back in the stands. Some people like to play a little forward. What do you guys suggest would be probably the best place to put the ball in your stance?
All right, let's see here. I'll go ahead and do a little quick demonstration. So we actually have an alignment rod. You can use 2 golf clubs. You can do alignment rods. I'm going to place this one. You'll notice a couple of little yellow lines there, but I'm going to make it a little bit more clear for our viewers. I'm going to stick one here in the center. You would be surprised. A lot of people don't even know where the center of their stance is. Like if I'm looking at them and they got the ball in their stance, so I'm going to play with that orange rod. I could say where's that orange rod in your stance? And they're going to say, it's right in the center. Well, clearly that's not in the center. That's more in the front.
Yeah.
So identifying and like, hey, you got a problem, you don't even know where the center of your stance is number one.
Right.
The awareness.
That's right.
Hey, this is an awareness.
Yeah.
Now you need something that you can reproduce on the driving range. I call it a hitting station. And you need to kind of retrain your awareness of where the center of your stance is. So, Jason, if you want to go into how you typically tell somebody where the ball goes, but first we need to know where the middle of the stance is, and then we play off that, either forward or back.
Yeah. That is correct. And so I will start, shorter clubs. I think you have a 50 degree. So 50 degree generally is going to be center of your stance, maybe just slightly forward of that. And it can go up to where the driver's going to be off the inside of your left heel or just inside that. Now, one thing that I think is going to be golfer specific is going to be dependent upon where the bottom of their swing is. And that's something that as we go into a lesson, so generally I will start my students middle and then have them, I guess I would call it kind of a one ball. I generally keep the ball in a general position, and as they move their stance out, they step their right foot back. So, and it's the way that Jack Nicklaus, and that's the way that I learned to do your ball position, is you start off with your feet for a wedge about hip width, and then you start with the ball in the center and you move your right foot back just a little bit at a time, and it actually moves the ball forward, moves your head back and moves the ball forward. So what Daniel has here on the ground has got these different notches on it that are going to go all the way up to where you have the ball in a driver position. So, and we see a lot of students, and I think, Daniel, you probably do as well, that come in with the ball way in the back of their stance.
It's my pet peeve. If you're going to do anything, play it more forward.
It's
back of the stance is really bad, and Jason's going into the low point of the swing. Again, it is dependent on where the low point of the swing, but just because they swing there doesn't mean it's right. So I like to force the ball position. Say, hey, center of the stance is where we're going to start. And just a good rule of thumb, start in the center with your wedges. And I'm talking about pitch and wedge, gap wedge, lob wedge. When it gets to a 9-iron, move that 1/4 of an inch up. If you move a ball up, that's too much. You're going to run, unless you have a stance that's this wide, you're going to run out of room. So again, it's very little.
Right.
But the thing is, you got to remember, golf clubs, they stair step. They get the short clubs and they go up as they get longer and they add loft, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, we got to play at different parts of in our stance. And also, you got to remember that the golf swing is on an arc, and Jason was kind of alluding to this. We have an arc around the body, and based on where that ball is, we hit it at different spots. The low point changes on that arc.
Yeah.
Too many golfers try to force that position, and you don't want to. You need to just let it be natural. So good ball position, start from the center, move the ball forward to the inside of the lead foot is perfect. Do not get back a center unless you're trying to hit under a tree. That's about it. Really, just keep it simple.
And the back of the stance. Yeah. Most people do that because they are having trouble with their impact, and so that's the way they can hit it and keep the loft on the club. And so, but the thing is, and it makes it worse. It makes it worse.
So what Jason's saying is, I'm going to move this back, and you can see, look at my awesome orange stick. I can tell it's in the back of my stance.
That's right.
And the viewers can see. So if the club's back here, you got to remember I'm on a round arc, right? So I'm actually coming in more inside, but look at that face. It hasn't had time to shut down, has it?
Straight right.
So now I've got to start forcing a closed face.
That's right.
So, gosh, how many bad habits did we just incorporate by bad ball position?
A bunch.
Yeah. So now my hands are releasing too early. My upper body's having to slow down because I have to decelerate to hit the ball back there to get the club in the right position. Just a lot of nasty stuff happens. Make sure you place a hitting station on the ground and learn your ball's position. Great question. What do you got for us next?
Finally, you actually are just kind of seamlessly went into the next question. When you're on the range, what do you want to warm up with? We talked about it off air. You guys rarely teach with the driver.
Rarely.
But when it comes to warming up, getting your swing ready on the range, what's the club you want to use?
Yeah, so you always want to start low. One is for health reasons. If you start swinging as hard as you can instantly on the range, you're more likely to pull something, hurt something. But at the same time, the longer the club, typically the harder you swing, right? So you're really reinforcing these bad habits if you haven't had much of a lesson or a technique lesson or anything or any kind of process that you're trying to work through. So again, the more that you reproduce these bad movements, the harder it is to later on fix. So the driver, if you're just starting out with the driver, which a lot of people do, the warm-up session is for a reason. You want to set the tone for the day.
Yeah.
And usually you want to set the tone with some good swings and some good timing and good habits. So we start that with a hitting station. If you notice, if you go to any PGA events, which you covered some,
A bunch.
they always had a hitting station they would start out in. They may kick them out later on, but they're going to start and they're going to work on just some foundational things that get them in a good position to get ready for the day.
Right.
So alignment, ball position, and wedges. You're not hitting full swings. They're working on something, so you're just getting that good timing. And remember, when we talked about taking the club back, we wanted everything working together. The slower it is, the more that we can focus on that. I'll tell you this, and I'll let Jason talk. Take this to heart if you get anything out of this today. When I practice, I use it for practicing. I'd never hit a shot over 75%. You can give me a bucket of 150 balls, and I might hit 2 or 3 full shots. The rest are going to be with wedges, even 7 irons, even a driver. I very rarely hit full drivers when I'm practicing, because if you can't hit it slow, you sure can't hit it fast. And it's going to be very few and far between. The only time I hit full shots is actually when I'm warming up for the round, because I actually have, I'm not working on my swing. I'm just trying to set the tone for my swing, and I'm going to swing some shots like I feel like I'm going to hit on the course, and I am going to warm up for that session. So limit your practice to full shots. Take those out. Let's limit it to half shots and 75%ers.
I think that's great. And going through the years and talking with all the students, try to get them to start out with, their sand wedge, 5 shots, 10 shots, and then work their way up. And the thing about it is there's no need when you're out on the range for you to hit 50 drivers. When are you ever going to hit 50 drivers anyway? When you play golf, you may hit 14 at most.
Yeah, you're wasting your energy.
You're wasting your energy.
You'll get wore out.
And so you need to be working on your tempo, like Daniel said. You need to be working on contact, transition, just smooth. Absolutely love that. And I love how you talked about, so when somebody's going out to play, I learned this from a guy that used to play on my college team, is I would hit, and I started using it, and it worked. So on the range, when you're warming up, I would never hit at a target, like at a flag. I would hit up the middle of the range. And the reason that I did that is I didn't want to mentally start missing the green and start being like, oh my gosh, I'm hitting the ball bad. I'm missing green. I'm trying to hit at that flag and I'm missing the green, and now I get in my head and I'm like, what's wrong with my golf swing? Mm-hmm. So I am warming up, hitting, like you said, we're hitting full shots because we're getting ready to play, but we're hitting up the middle of the range, just seeing which way the ball's curving for that day. If it's my little draw, or if it's a little fade, or if it's pretty straight, and then I'm going to take that out to the golf course.
And you said it's more about the shot shape than anything. So I do start out hitting the targets with my scoring clubs, my precise clubs, but you're right. When I start putting an 8, 7, 6 or what in there, I'm usually picking out a dip in the hills or the trees, just something that's in a general area that's, as long as I'm hitting there, I just want to see how it's curving to get there.
Sure. Yeah.
And just trying to get a feel of what God gave me that day and going to work with it. It's not a time that you're really trying to overhaul and correct something. I will say I only hit maybe 2 or 3 drivers tops. If one gets a little squirrely, I might just, what the heck was that? And I might pick it up till I hit a few consistents that has a certain shot shape to it. But again, the less is better here when you're warming up. Yeah. So that's how we warm up.
Yeah. Good stuff, guys. We're coming up next here on Back Nine, brought to you by Wohali Sports. We'll close out the show, get a little update on the knee that Jason had operated on. That's coming up next.
Fall on the Hill returns to Minor Hill October 7th from 2 to 8 with live music all day, vendors, hay rides, a petting zoo, pony wagon rides, a pop-up paint party, face painting, putt-putt golf, a jams and jellies contest, inflatables, and much more. Plus, don't miss the fireworks show at 8 p.m. Fall on the Hill 2023, brought to you by Minor Hill Alliance and Liquor World. Enjoy a day full of awesome music from Brace Killen, Damon Schrader, Josh Reisner, and Salem Rats. Armbands are $5. Don't miss Fall on the Hill, October 7th from 2 to 8 at 165 Ray Branch Road in Minor Hill, Tennessee.
If you could live anywhere, where would it be? And what would it be like? With today's home values, this is the perfect time to sell and make those dreams real. When you work with a world-class agent at Coldwell Banker, you benefit from trusted guidance and our revolutionary seller's assurance program. to make your home sale more rewarding than ever. So it really is true. Your dreams don't have to be just dreams.
Jack Davis Insurance, located at 201 West Gain Street in Lawrenceburg, has you covered through life's obstacles. Facing those challenges is easier together. That's why Jack Davis specializes in group insurance. Cover the most valuable aspect of your business, your employees, with coverage for life, accident, cancer, critical illness, short-term disability, dental, and vision. Jack Davis can customize to meet every need. Serving Lawrence and surrounding counties since 1987. Contact Jack Davis Insurance today at 931-242-5225.
You're gonna see me shine, 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 shine. Walking on beams of light, 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 light.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
All right, welcome back here. The Back Nine brought to you by Wohali Sports. Here's we're closing things out. Jason, so give us an update here on your knee.
So I had the replacement surgery this coming Tuesday or next Tuesday, be 4 weeks. And so when I went into therapy yesterday or Wednesday, and I had 120 degrees of flexion. So with a partial knee or a full knee replacement.
There's flexions with the people.
Flexion. Okay, so trying to pull your foot towards your butt.
There you go.
Okay, so what they want is they want you to have 125 degrees in 3 months. 2 to 3 months. So at 4 weeks, he said I was about 7 degrees ahead of where they want you to be. So it's doing great. I would do it over again. So and should be back to practicing. And I'm going to do some video. I've already started taking a couple videos about what I had done and things like that. But I was talking to you, and you kind of said I need to go ahead and start taking videos of how to kind of build the swing or rebuild a swing or come back from a surgery where you have a replaced joint, and because your movement is going to be limited from what I'm used to being able to do. But I think that I'm going to be able to get back to close. 135 is what a normal joint can move.
Yeah.
And so at 125, 130 at best, that's as far as I can go. So I'm going to be limited in my flexion in the right knee. So we're going to see how my swing, some things that I'm going to have to change, I'm sure, because you don't want to load too hard into that knee. And hopefully when I come back, it'll be fully healed.
Yeah.
So, but it's doing well.
That's good stuff, guys. Well,
it's good that your front leg looks like it's healthy. So
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Front leg's good.
Yeah, no staples on that.
No, the front leg's only had surgery.
I'll tell you how we're going to test it. Is almost 2 years ago we were at the PGA show with our buddies over at Flight School.
That's right.
And he was over there ripping 200 yard. I think he got to 205.
I did.
7 irons.
Oh,
carry.
Yeah.
And I really think that's how he broke that leg. But he was ripping them, so we're gonna. That's your benchmark is 205 yards, 7 irons.
Woo. I remember that day. I was hitting them hard too.
Yeah.
Well, he did it once, and then he drew a crowd, and he kept hitting it harder and harder. And I'm like, and it was, and 5 shots turned into 50 of them, just pounding
rockets. I wouldn't recommend doing that.
Yeah, so don't do that.
That was your 10-cup moment?
That was my 10, yeah. And so that
Kept
probably,
dropping,
and then
man.
actually, Daniel's 100% correct, because right after that is when I started tearing my knee back and forth.
He was
right, left, right, left, right, left.
He was dripping sweat. And the thing is, he had to keep going because everybody's like, I want to see, and yeah. Anyway, that was funny. But that's your benchmark, 205.
205.
So we'll see how far
I got
we
work
get.
to do.
We'll see. Well, guys, another good show here this week, other good tips, and looking forward to next week. So for Jason Vaughn, Daniel Creel, for our producer, and Kevin Wright, this is AJ Good. See you guys next week on The Back Nine.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.